Hello and welcome to the Tour Report from Secret Golf. Well, this week we're back to another one of these massive elevated events. The tour's spoiling us, Elk, because in 5 events we're going to have 4 of these $20 million purse elevated events after the Honda Classic last week. But I have to say, going back to the Honda, and I know that you watched the final round and the playoff between Chris KIRK and Eric Cole, who's a rookie on the tour. I have a feeling we're going to be talking about him a little later as well. But Chris KIRK getting it done, a very emotional win, huge victory for him at PGA National. And it was a brilliant tournament. I had a great time watching it over the weekend.
Yeah, and you know what I really enjoyed about Chris KIRK, who I know pretty well, I was loving seeing his rhythm. And, you know, with so much emphasis nowadays on Tour Diane about speed, I've always felt like, and a lot of guys that play good iron players feel like when they have their swing going the best is when they're literally just dropping the club on the ball in a very sort of heavy, sort of sledgehammer looking swing. And that's what, you know, Chris KIRK just had that, you know, slow up and then just dropping it on there. And yes, he stumbled around a little bit towards the end. It was a great playoff. We met, of course, a new player, Eric Cole, whose mother was Laura whose mother is Laura Barr back in the day. I remember watching her. So it was very interesting, you know, watching the emergence of a new player. Mm-hmm. But all credit to Chris KIRK with his tempo, playing around a very windy course, a very dangerous course. It's a good lesson for people to realize that when you get under a lot of pressure, you don't have to try to hit the ball, don't have to smash it. He just stayed with his rhythm.
Yeah, although that the hitting the ball in the water on 18 was just gut-wrenching. However, it just shows, you know, that was his 5th PGA Tour win, and someone who's been in that situation before where they know what's on the line, you know, took his drop and then stuck it. And obviously, you know, that put him in the playoff. But gosh, it was like heart in your mouth at that moment. You're like, he can't throw this away.
Yeah, and, you know, the Tour, Jack Nicklaus being on the telecast talking about that the Tour has promised him next year it's going to be a better field. So it's very clear, Diane, that everybody realizes that there's sort of 2 tours now on the PGA. There's this sort of elevated ones we're going to enjoy this week and next week. And then there's the left behind. So Honda's not going to be there next year, maybe, although they've told Jack that they're going to play they're going to play this tournament again. Very interesting times.
Yeah, well, that was the Hondas last year of sponsoring the event, but I thought Jack's interview was very honest. I mean, you could tell that obviously the field strength, he was very aware of the fact that it was a lot weaker than he had hoped and a lot weaker than he'd seen in previous years. But also they had a terrible position in the schedule. And we just said we have 4 elevated events in 5, and the Honda's the one that falls in the middle. Obviously this week, the Arnold Palmer Invitational, and then the Players' Championship next week. So yeah, you hope, because it's such a great tournament. Jack and Barbara do so much. They've raised so much money for their charity there and helped so many kids. And seeing PGA National and the Bear Trap playing as an absolute beast, it's a really entertaining tournament to watch, and you hope that it does kind of get back to where it deserves to be.
Yeah, the course is one of the stars, of course. PGA Nationals had so much history there, Ryder Cups back in the day. You know, when you tune in, that's the reason I did. I wanted to see the guys come through the Bear Trap one more time. So much drama there involved. Yeah. It's a great event, no doubt about it. We do move gears now, Diane, to Bay Hill, which, you know, of course, Arnold Palmer was the one. This is his event, and his memory will be well and truly solidified this week with his statue and all the memorabilia around the clubhouse. But to be honest with you, Diane, when this wasn't a top 20, when this wasn't an elevated event, a lot of players might skip Bay Hill because it's on a small piece of property. There is a lot of dogleg holes. Jon Rahm is back in action this week. Will he be able to conquer 6 dogleg lefts and 3 dogleg rights? Probably, but we're going to talk about it. We're going to break it down. But Jon Rahm's only ever played at Bay Hill one time, so that tells you right there something.
And has never won on the East Coast either. So he's obviously the strong favourite again this week after winning, 5 times in 9 worldwide starts. But yeah, as you say, a lot of the guys have skipped it before and it's been kind of a sporadic feature for them. But you have a great story about Arnold Palmer asking you to come and play this event. This was never one of your favourites, was it?
No, this tournament, Bay Hill, was always something that I never could do any good at. I would 75 was my average score, I think, around Bay Hill. But I was playing in the Doral tournament, which was about 2 weeks before this event in 1997, and I got a call from Arnold Palmer asking me to be at a function at Bay Hill in 2 weeks in the locker room. I'll meet you at 5 p.m. I hadn't even committed to the tournament, Diane. So I said, I'll be there. Hung up the phone. I committed to the event, went to the function. I finished up winning the tournament in Doral that week. Went on to Bay Hill, playing some of the best golf of my career. Did my pair of 75s. Had trouble playing the dog legs. Didn't know what to do on certain holes. Weren't long enough to cut across. Too long to go down this way. Went on to the next week and won the Players Championship. So in between 2 wins, I had my Bermuda Triangle, as we say, Diane. Can't make it work, couldn't figure it out, and it's always been that way. However, I love everything about Bay Hill.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned 75 being your average score, because remember last year the weather was crazy at the weekend. Scottie Scheffler went on to win on the Sunday, but the scoring average was 75.48 on Sunday last year. And -5 he won at. Remember in 2020 when Tyrrell Hatton went on to win, he had great rounds Thursday, Friday, was over par Saturday and Sunday and won at -4. So this is one of those tournaments that can be extremely unpredictable. Yes, it's in Orlando. The wind really picks up and can swirl around here. And as you say, a lot of guys have skipped in the past because they don't want to feel completely beat up when they're turning up at the Players' Championship next week. I remember last year speaking to Mark Leishman, and this is a tournament he's won before, and we talked about that exact thing, that, Bay Hill mentally can just take it out of you, and then you're heading to a massive event at TVC Sawgrass and you just feel a little bit drained.
It is a great course to practice for the Players' Championship because there's so many tight shots at Bay Hill across corners. Mm-hmm. Of course, this was where Bryson DeChambeau, the now, forgotten person of the tour, went for the green on number 6, Diane, flew at 390 yards in the air. It threw Rory McIlroy off his game. Rory bit off more than he wanted to and went into the water. It cost him. Bryson went on to win the tournament. And what was this, a few years ago? Now all this has changed. He was heroic at the time, and how things have changed indeed, Diane. But that shot across that water was probably the best drive I've seen on the tour, maybe in my watching the tour for 40 years.
Yeah, the par 5 6th hole. Also the scene of John Daly's 18 back in 1998. So it's... Yeah,
I think I was there for that one.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sure you were, but it's, a lot of water again, and it's going to be interesting to dig through the field this week. We've talked about the strength of field. 44 of the top 50 in the world going to be teeing it up this week, which is just amazing. That the best field that we've seen since the Open Championship last summer. We're going to dig through our picks. As always, we're going to give outright favourites, ones to watch, and then dark horses. But let's talk a little bit more about the course as well. And, Bay Hill's known for having some of the toughest rough to play from on tour. And then you alluded to the fact, obviously, a lot of these dogleg shots. Guys are going to, again, scale back off the tee.
Yeah, when you think of Bay Hill, I immediately think of Tiger Woods. I think he's had 9 victories, I think, at Bay Hill, 8, something like that, ridiculous, 4 in a row at one point. But a lot of dogleg holes, small piece of property, lots of water, as you said, takes a fair amount of strategy. This course was so perfect for Tiger, great iron player, great pressure putter, back on Bermuda greens. As you said, windy. It's just... There's 2 kinds of players that have won here. We've seen some super short players do really well on this course, like Lauren Roberts won it a couple of times. Brian Gay, the shortest hitter on tour, won this tournament. Your friend,
Matt Every.
Matt Every, did he win it twice or at least once?
Yeah, 2 in a
Won
row.
it twice. But if you are a short hitter, it actually sort of helps you off the tee, Diane, because you don't have to make a decision about cutting across, but you better be a great putter. You can't win this tournament being a short hitter without being a great putter. Very long par threes. That was what sort of undid it for me. I was back there hitting a 2-iron or a 3-iron. I was a low hitter. I was watching these other guys throw it up in the air and stop on these greens from 230 yards away, and frustrating for me. And that was back before they had hybrids and all these other clubs now, Diane. But nonetheless, it's a great event. As I said earlier, a lot of people skip this event, but nobody skips for 20 million anymore. That would be crazy.
So you said something there that I want to talk about when it comes to our stats and all of our research that we've done this week. You said you have to be a great putter to do well around Bay Hill. Now, we have our full stat sheet that we put hours and hours of work into every week, and it really helps with our picks. And it's available for you to look at on our app, SG Tour. And you can really dive in and find some interesting things. And that's what we spend so much time doing every week. But let's talk about putting average versus ball striking right now on the tour. And we're looking at tournaments since the start of this calendar year. And you had thrown up something interesting. You asked me the question that you asked me earlier, and we'll go into it.
Well, we study trends, right? I think data represents about 30% of making a solid pick on tour for an event. I think another 30% is history on that course and current form. And then I think 30%, the last 30% or so is attitude, how the player is feeling, where are they in their life? Are they aggressive? Thinking about John Rahm, who's very aggressive, very, clear-minded, then thinking someone about your brother who maybe is not happy with his game and can't get his confidence going or whatever. So it's a 30-30-30, and then there's another 10% we throw in at the end. But I was asking you a question before the show. I said, if you were to take, Diane, top 5 putting performance on the West Coast, let's say for 5 weeks straight, you were on top 5 of the tour in putting, or you could take top 5 in ball striking for the same 5 events, which one would make the most money?
And my initial instinct was to go with ball striking. Let's talk about what our ball striking stat consists of. So we're distance, accuracy, and greens in regulation. So we
and percentages from the fairway to hit a shot next. So you've got them right there. What are they? You read them out there. I can't read them; they're too small. But we've got ball striking, birdie or better from the fairway, scrambling. Greens and reg, driving accuracy, driving distance, all combined, right? All the ball striking stats and scrambling.
So I would say ball striking. That would be my first gut reaction, was to say guys that were doing well consistently over those 5 tournaments in ball striking, giving themselves opportunities on tough courses. I mean, Torrey Pines, Riviera. I'm going to put ball striking as my top.
Well, anyone can come and check it out for themselves this week on our SG Tour app and go to the data page. But if you putt good right now, Diane, on tour, you slaughter ball striking.
Wow.
You win way more money, way more everything if you putt good than you do ball striking right now.
Wow. And the examples, there was 2 names that were kind of jumping out to us as examples. And Taylor Montgomery, someone that I've been so big on. And he had a great fall season. He's sitting at number 14 in the FedEx Cup standings right now. So has made a ton of money. And he's a great putter. He's number 1 putter on tour right now. And for the whole of the West Coast swing, there was one event that he missed. He's been within the top 3 in putting average, which is just amazing. And, obviously we talked about the great fall swing that he had, but he's maintained a spot within that top 15 in FedEx Cup standings. Yeah,
and barely in the top 100 in ball striking. You look at a trend like that, you think, okay, Taylor Montgomery, does he go home? Does he get a lesson from his coach? Keeps his number 1 ranking in putting, and all of a sudden he upgrades his swing action and something clicks for him? That's what we're trying to figure out.
Yeah, okay. There's another name. I'm going to leave him right now, though, because he's one of my picks this week. But he's actually been trending in both those categories, which is definitely showing in his results, ball striking and putting average. But we'll move on.
But the other name was Hayden Buckley, who's top 6 in ball striker for the whole West Coast. Only 2 spots higher than John Rahm, if you can believe that, Hayden Buckley. And he hasn't won near as much money as Taylor Montgomery and a ton less than John Rahm. So without the putting component, Diane, there, and I think you've got it in front of you. What's Hayden Buckley's putting average?
Yeah,
I got it. 90th and 140th in making birdies, but top five in ball striking on tour.
I'll give you another example, and you know, it was we know that this guy had one incredible week in Phoenix that won him over $2 million. But Nick Taylor, his putting average, he was 19th, 25th, 17th, 7th, and 11th. And then you look at his ball striking, he was 161 being his, or 170 being his highest, and his lowest was 119th. And Nick Taylor is now 17th in the FedEx Cup standings. So people know, we look at the trends of after each week. So when Nick Taylor finished his performance in Phoenix Open Waste Management, we look at his ranking on the tour, not for the week, on the tour totally, and see which way he's trending, whether he's going up or down. Mm-hmm. Yep. So go and check it out, because it's really interesting to really troll through everything and see the data, see the numbers and how we interpret it, because we do it differently to anyone else as well. But it's all available on the SG Tour Golf Gaming app. Okay, well, we're taking all of that and we're going to move on to our picks for this week, the Arnold Palmer Invitational at Bay Hill. Do you want to start with your outright favourite? As we said, all the big guns in action.
I'll start by leading you into it, because we both had the same star player that we wanted to pick. And you know, when I think of this player that is going to be your pick this week, was going to be my pick, I'm looking at his data, and he's fixed some significant things in his game that we both saw in this box here, particularly his putting and his chipping. But you know, I know for sure that you don't have to be a high right to left player, like a draw player, like Alexander SCHEFFLER or this player, to play Bay Hill, because Tiger Woods won 9 of them and he was left to right. Mm-hmm. But this man is red hot, in my opinion, and I'm going to leave it up to you, because we both were going to pick him, but it's yours.
I know. We actually overlapped on a few this week. I think it's been the first time ever. It's been a bit of a trend of late. We still need to get our outright winner to hit, though. Will Zalatoris is going to be the guy this week at 25-1. Now, there's a lot of reasons, and as you just talked about it, the data backs it up completely. But when you look at guys that perform well on tough golf courses, Will Zalatoris is the man. I mean, he finished runner-up in 2 of the 4 majors last year, T6 at the Masters, he had top 5 finishes at Muirfield Village and at Torrey Pines. And then he was sidelined because of injury for, you know, the second half of 2022, beginning in the FedEx Cup playoffs. But then just finished in a tie for 4th at the Genesis at Riviera. Again, another tough course. So Will Zalatoris is well and truly back. But when you look at his 4 starts in 2023, the putting has greatly improved, and it's always been the black mark over his game. But how fantastic for him to know that he's heading in the right direction. And right now, looking at his putting average, he is sitting at 8th, which is
top 10 for Will Zalatoris. The only other thing he has trouble with, back in the middle of the West Coast, he was ranked 174th in up and down around the greens and scrambling, but he's cut that in half. He's into the 70s. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at Will Zalatoris and I'm looking at what he's been doing. It's impressive. He's top 10 ball striker and now top 10 putter, and he's kind of fixed his chipping. So that's why we both were picking him.
He's at a top 10 at Bay Hill before as well in 2021. So coming back to a course that he's played well at before. But I think Will Zalatoris has to be the pick this week. And at 25 to 1, you know, John Ram is 6.5 to 1. You go down the list and you see that Will Zalatoris' odds are, you know, really good. Rory's 8.5 to 1. So I like him. You know, as you say, we both went to pick him this week. But have you got someone else that you're going to throw into the mix?
Well, yeah, and this player is currently number 4 in the FedEx Cup, so he's no slouch either. A name that you're not as comfy or heard on this show that many times, but SEAMUS Power, who is top 5 in putting average on tour. He has green across the board, hits it good, played the last 3 weeks. Everything I'm seeing with SEAMUS Power, I think this is kind of a week where if you're a top 5 player and you're number 4 in the FedEx, are you really going to be that intimidated and affected by all these super players around you? I just don't think so. He's from Ireland. He's a good win player, but more than anything, his stats don't lie, and he's got a lot of confidence. So I'm going to ride a bit of a horse here at 80 to 1. I think I got him at this week, which is pretty good for an A player, Diane.
Yeah, really good. The other name that I was back and forth was Jason Day, because this is a course that Jason Day's won at before, but he has finished within the top 10 in 3 of his 4 starts this year. 5th place at the WM Phoenix Open. As I said, won this tournament in 2016 and has finished within the top 25 another 4 times. And huge improvement in all the stats for Jason Day. So he's 33 to 1. The reason I didn't pick him is I feel like I want to save him for next week. Again, back to the players and another tournament that he's won at. So yeah, but Jason Day, definitely worth a look this week at 33 to 1.
Good.
Okay, so we're going to move on to our ones to watch. And I say guys with slightly higher odds, but you're straight out of the gate with an 80 to 1.
I am, and this man plays this course very well. Good friend of Arnold Palmer. You know, Ricky Fowler went back to working with Butch Harmon in the off season. I'm looking at his stats 5 weeks ago, Diane, out there at the Farmers. He was, you know, 70th in birdie average. He was, you know, 100th in putting average. Now, coming out of the West Coast, Diane, I've got Rickie. His stats are off the charts. Number 9 in ball striking. He was terrible last year, if you recall. Top 20 in percentages of hitting the green from the fairway. Just going up in every category. Every category is improved, and he's played this tournament 10 times. He's made the cut 9. Honestly, I just don't see how, and he's back in Bermuda, he's back in Florida. I just think Ricky Fowler is going to have a great week, and he's 80 to 1, and there is these horses for courses, and he knows how to play this course, not intimidated, and he has the same data I do, Diane, so he knows he's getting better every week.
You picked him earlier this year and you said that it might be the final time you pick him if he didn't do something for you, and he didn't let you down. And as you say, a real pickup in his game, which everyone celebrates. Everyone wants Ricky Fowler to do well. Yeah,
he's a great representative of his company that he works for. He wears the logo well. I remember when he wore the pink with the Bay Hill gear a couple of years ago, honoring Arnold. I love everything about Ricky Fowler, but what I like the most is he's hitting it good again. Yeah. He's been all over the show for a couple of years, and Butch Harmon's done it again. He's got him back on track. Yeah. Butch Harmon said to me recently, we were at the Floridian together, and he said Ricky Fowler will win this year on tour. Okay. So there you have it.
All right. Well, moving on to mine, I'm conflicted right now because the guy that I really wanted to pick, he's 125 to 1. So I'm thinking, between 110 to 125 to 1. I found him at 125 yesterday, but it might have dropped slightly. So he could be a dark horse. And this is another guy that you liked this week, but Tom Hoge, going to throw him into the mix. Brilliant odds. We've talked about long iron play being vital this week, and looking at greens and reg from 200 yards plus, Tom Hoge's sitting second on the PGA Tour. So definitely the strength of his game. He was T15 here in 2020. He finished tied for 14th at the Genesis. And the thing with Hoge is the putter. Let me have a look. I've got these stats in front of me here.
It's good.
Yeah.
He started the West Coast in the top 30, and he left the West Coast in the top 20. So he increased 10 spots on the tour putting out west. So that tells me that he's putted very well on the West Coast. And
the ball striking's been really good as well. I mean, if you look at, where is he? He is, I mean, in the 20s, he's fluctuated from 27th to 22nd. So
if you're in the top 30 in any of these stats, you are in the elite category on tour.
Mm-hmm. And scrambling is his highest, but he's improved. I mean, highest over the course of the year so far was 88th. He's now down to 62nd. So again, improvements in his game. So Tom Hoge loved the odds, but then when we started diving into that little trend today, Keith Mitchell, very hard to overlook Keith Mitchell right now, and he's 60 to 1, so the odds definitely show it, but he has been doing great. We've learned a lot and seen a lot of Keith Mitchell at the Pebble Beach Pro-Am. He finished top 5 at Pebble Beach and at the Genesis as well, and he likes this golf course. He's had 2 top 6 finishes here. And when you look at the long iron shots, 175 to 200 yards for the season on the tour, he's ranked 3rd. So really good stats for Keith Mitchell, and good odds at 60 to 1. And he's another guy who, when you look at ball striking, he's got improvements every week, down at 23rd. And putting average, huge improvements from 167th at the start of the year to 50th after the Genesis.
I was going to say, can you imagine going out west, 167th ranked putter on tour? Like, your confidence level going out to California must have been 0, and you leave California 50th in putting. You climbed over 110 people out on the West Coast, had a bunch of good finishes. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's amazing to me. So that's kind of what we're looking at, Diane. We're trying to catch these guys when they're going up, because we know they don't stay up the whole year.
And we look at that putting, that improvement. He's a guy that lives on the East Coast, so heading out and putting on those poor greens to have so much success and such an improvement is just excellent. So Keith Mitchell at 60 to 1. I'll pick 2. Keith and Tom Hoge at 125 to 1 as well. Well, 110 to 1 he's sitting at today. So, all right.
We haven't talked about our number 1, 2, and 3 players in the world, and we won't be now that we are now going into our long shots. Jon Rahm, of course, Scottie Scheffler, and Rory McIlroy. Those 3 are the big guns. Wouldn't be surprised if they were paired together. Rory McIlroy's data is not very good at the moment. Maybe not quite settled after his win in Dubai. Not sure what's going on with Rory. He played with Jason Duffner at Phoenix in the last round. Duff said he wasn't on his game all the way. Mm-hmm. Scottie Scheffler, of course, is on his game, and Jon Rahm, of course, is crazy. He's only played this tournament once. Of course, Scottie Scheffler is the defending champion, Diane. But what do you see out of those 3? I just can't pick Jon Rahm every week, and he's a left-to-right player. This course is predominantly right to left. Really suits someone that can someone like a Will Zalatoris that can draw the ball, will take off a ton of yardage. If they played together, you would see it on TV. But can he do it again?
Well, and as we said about Rahm, he's skipped this event. He's only played it once before. He hasn't had the success he's had on the West Coast over on the East Coast. He's definitely the favourite. And we've talked about the fact that he's had all these worldwide wins, and he's playing amazing. He's world number 1. He's plus 650 this week. Are we stupid for not picking him? Is everyone stupid for not picking Jon Rahm? But as you say, I think we would be doing a little bit of a disservice if we just came out and said we're going to pick Rahm, Rory, and Scheffler. Rory is plus 850. Of course, he's won here before and came from 6 shots back to win on Sunday. And then Scheffler, who played out of his mind last year in really, really tough conditions in the final round to get the win, and he's back to defend this week after winning again at the Phoenix Open just a few weeks ago. So he's plus 1,000. It's hard not to pick them, but then it's not the aim of our show. It's just to come out.
There's no way, Diane, that they could be thinking about tuning up for next week. Mm-hmm. I know all 3 of them would love to knock off the Players Championship. I know Rahm would particularly, because that is a course that not necessarily favors a power player like Rahm, but it will suit him with a power fade. It's not a warm-up week by any means, but like you say, we just can't pick him every week. And I just don't think Rahm's experience around here this week, playing left to right, very aggressive, he's going to find himself across these dog legs a little bit, because there's no way Rahm is laying up on all these holes. He's the best driver in the world. I'm going with SEAMUS power.
Okay, and I'm going with Will Zalatoris. So we have our dark horses, so guys over 100 to 1. And, because of the quality of the field, it's quite easy to find really great players that are higher odds this week. I'll kick off with mine, because again, this is a guy that when I told you his name, you were like, I was looking at him too. Someone that's coming over from playing the DP World Tour. He's 150 to 1, and my pick is Ryan Fox. Again, another guy who's had a very impressive start to 2023. He's had 3 top 20 finishes. 2 of those were in the United Arab Emirates and then 1 in Singapore. The wind in Orlando is not going to faze him. He's from New Zealand. He's won in Scotland before, for goodness sake, in October. So he's used to playing in these bad windy conditions. And I'm not saying Orlando is going to be bad this week at all. It's first time playing here. And we obviously don't get the stats from Ryan Fox in the same way, because he doesn't play PGA Tour predominantly. But, let's say he's not going to be fazed by being, first of all, around these big players. I think he's going to really relish the opportunity. I think he's going to love this course too. So Ryan Fox at 150 to 1, he's my dark horse.
Ryan Fox is the best player that nobody's ever heard of. Comes from a big athletic family. His dad was a famous rugby player. He's a big guy, huge man, super powerful. If we did have stats on him, we'd be looking at green boxes with him, like in the top 5 in all the driving categories. All the irons is about the same size as John Rahm Diane. I'm talking, of course, about Ryan Fox. Yeah, very exciting player. I'm so happy that he's going to be here for 2 weeks to let the American public see, and hopefully he can get himself into contention and see what he's all about. Slightly unorthodox swing, but very powerful, just amazingly powerful, like a John Rahm. So looking forward to seeing Ryan Fox. He was on my list. I had him pegged there. But I'm looking at Aaron Wise. I'm staying with the trend, Diane, of watching players that are moving up in their putting performance. Aaron Wise is top 10 on tour in putting. Hits the ball good. I mean, birdies everywhere. He's 9th in putting, 59th in ball striking. He's just there in every category. He's 100 to 1. And I just, I'm looking at Aaron Wise having a great week this week.
Yeah. He's, where's he sitting in FedEx right now? 66th in the FedEx standings. But yeah, someone like Aaron Wise,
hasn't played that much.
Yeah, and he's been on our radar for a while. Great iron player. So, all right, I like it. So I'm going with Ryan Fox at 150 to 1, and you have Aaron Wise at 100 to 1. Aaron
Wise has played pretty good. He's played 4 times here, and he's made the cut 3.
Okay.
And played okay last week, top 30 at the Honda. So, yes, I'm trying to catch Aaron Wise on the way up at 100 to 1.
Okay, great. Well, this week, Arnold Palmer Invitational at Bay Hill. I've seen some great stuff on social media where they, every year now they're really honouring him. And one thing that Arnold Palmer was always very famous for is writing letters to everyone who won on the PGA Tour. My brother has a letter from him, and it's actually hanging up in my parents' garage at their house. I saw it the other day. He's got a couple from him, but they are putting copies of those letters up. I think it's in the locker room this week, but just, such a lovely touch. And there's going to be a lot of special stories and really things to honour him this week.
Every time you met Arnold Palmer, you felt like you were the most special person in the world. I'll give you an example. I was taking my son Sam when he was about 11 years old to the tournament, and Arnold Palmer was in the locker room having lunch. And I walked over to him as he saw me, and he raised his eyebrows to come over. And I went over and I said, "Hey, I want you to introduce you to my son, Sam." Mm. Arnold Palmer stood up, looked at Sam, his 11-year-old boy, and shook his hand and said, welcome to Bay Hill.
Oh. And Sam will never forget that moment. Like, that will have a huge impact on him.
Sam has a flag signed from Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, and Gary Player inside the Masters box. He got that day. They were all there that day, and he had a Masters flag, and all three of them signed it inside the Masters flag. So, and
Arnold Palmer, known for having such an iconic signature, and it goes back to something that you've always said as well. You could always tell, you could make out his full name in his signature because he always wrote it very neatly.
Yeah, Arnold Palmer learned that from Jackie Burke back in the day. Told him that all these people would follow Arnold to get an autograph, and it would take his time signing Arnold Palmer, and he'd finish up. The crowd would have to go with him forever because each one of them was very neatly done. Jackie Burke, of course, if you join our club here at Champions, the first thing he asks you to do when you have an interview with Mr. Burke is sign your name. Let me see it. And if one of our members just goes like that across there, I promise you, it's in bad shape. He tells them they're too nervous. They shouldn't be a member of our club because you can't take a backswing with a signature like that. He said, I need you to write it again so I can read it.
Wow. I was going to say, I don't know what you'd think about mine, but normally, do you know when you pay for something now and you have to sign it on these little screens and it looks rubbish no matter what? So I'm like, it's nothing like my normal signature.
That's
all right. Okay, well, this week, brilliant week, iconic course. What were you going to say?
I got one last story for you, Arnold Palmer story. You want it?
Yeah, of course.
Because we have footage of this. The one that when Arnold Palmer came to Champions Club to play in the Ryder Cup, I think it was 1969, Ben Hogan was the captain, and Arnold Palmer was out in a singles match, and he got to the turn. He was 4 down to this European player, or actually a British player at the time, and Jackie Burke saw Arnold Palmer on the 10th tee, and Jackie Burke said to Arnold Palmer, what's the score? And Arnold said, well, I'm 4 down. He said, well, what about this Arnie's Army? Where's this big charge? What's going on here? And Arnold Palmer said, what will you do for me if I can come back on this back nine and win this match? Jackie Burke said, you've got no chance. He said, if you win this match, he said, I'll build you a watch right here on the tee when you get in. So off goes Arnold Palmer, and he comes back from 4 down. He wins this match. Jackie Burke's in the shower that night thinking about what he's going to do for Arnold Palmer because he told him he's going to build him a watch. So it came to him that Arnold Palmer had 12 letters. So he had a clock made with Arnold Palmer all the way around. And to that day, they may show his office this week, that clock sits right behind Arnold's desk.
Hogan was the captain, and Burke was his sidekick. He was with him all the time. That's when they came out, and I was 3 down. Boris and I were 3 down.
Burke came out?
Yeah, and you know how he's always loud. And he says, well, Palmer, he says, I've heard of all these charges and all that stuff. He says, I'd like to see you charge out of this one. And I said, leave me alone, Jackie. Quit picking on me.
No, that's not it.
Well, he says, I'll tell you what.
Yes.
If you get this match, I'll build you a clock. Well, that clock's sitting in my office in Latrobe.
Didn't he take Arnold Palmer that had 12 letters and he put an A all the way around, right?
It's Arnold Palmer, 12 letters. And he built it.
That is a fantastic story.
Yeah.
Amazing. I'd never heard that before. All right. Well, we're going to have a lot more stories next week because Players' Championship, always one of our faves, because it's a tournament that you have won twice before. You have your own gate at TBC Sawgrass that I'll have to walk through next week and get a picture of. But we'll be here with our full tour report. And as I said, lots of tales from the Players' Championship next week.
The SG Tour Golf Gaming app, the place for you to compete and win cash on PGA Tour events. The SG Tour is a golf experience like no other, with games designed by golf professionals. You can play single-day games and tournament-long contests each week. It's easy to get involved. Join or create a game for you and your buddies. Pick 4 players and follow along with the action. And if you need some help with your picks, we've got you covered with our weekly handicapping show, The Tour Report, and exclusive content with our PGA Tour players. Join the fun and win money on the SG Tour, available in the App Store.